into the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
I never noticed it until this episode, how loud and energetic our intro is for AfterBuzz, and then it just cuts right into this.
It's such a downer. It's such an immediate downer.
Well, let's not keep them down. Let's go right into episode 5. I'm your host, Courtney Henderson. We are here doing Man in the High Castle, our Amazon show. We are doing episode 5, The New Normal. And I'm here with my two lovely, handsome men.
Lovely and handsome.
Doubled up this week. My name is Keith W. Black. You can find me all over the internet at Keith W. Black.
And I am Taylor Bolt. You can find me on Twitter at Taybolt, that's Tayboldt, or on Instagram at Tbolt, also BOLDT.
You have that down to a science. I love that.
I've done it once or twice.
Just once or twice. Well, let's go right into it because, like the show, we talked about this in our last episode, they don't mess around. They go straight into the action, picking up right where they left off.
Yeah, I think they're really nailing this, and I think it's brilliant when you do a season release like this to have these really climactic cliffhangers where there's not a moment passes in between episodes, because we talked about it last episode, and it's the same thing this episode. The first scene happens 1 second after the last thing that we saw in the previous episode, and it just makes you want to go, yes, next please, yes, Amazon Prime. I click next and show me the next episode.
It's literally that kind of moment where if you got up to grab a drink or something, you wouldn't know that the episode changed.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was at that same time. So
yeah.
So the prince is shot.
He's very shot.
And now people are scattering. And the thing I found the most interesting, and we talked about this in the last episode about media, was one of the first things they were concerned with doing before they're like, oh, what's the word? Secure the area. They're like, get the cameras.
Well,
they don't want anybody to find out that the
right.
prince has been shot.
That is very interesting.
I also thought that it was the cameras, potentially because those would be a great way to conceal a weapon.
Yeah, that's
and
initially,
the flash and the
actually
bulbs. That's what was my
what
initial
I thought.
thought.
Was that some guy had a pistol inside the camera maybe and took the shot that way. But I actually like that where it's we
didn't even
want to
cross my
contain
mind.
that.
So that's why there's 3 of us.
But you said until after. It makes a lot of sense.
I'm interested because
it's that sign of weakness.
Yeah.
It was live broadcast, we know, to some degree. But, we had the same sort of talk last episode, whether or not, is it televised? Is it just radio? How easy would it be for them to try to conceal this sort of thing? Because you see Frank go back and listen to the radio and try to find out more information, and we get the vibe that he doesn't actually hear anything. So it's not ridiculous to think that the Japanese government is trying to keep this totally under wraps.
And can we just talk about how he runs off? And he's standing at, I don't know, in that one moment, we see him, he pulls the gun out and then puts it back in his pocket. I'm
just want to make sure it's there.
Come on, yeah, right?
But, still packing.
But we did see something fell out of his pocket.
Yes, we
dropped
did.
your chain.
Yes.
The necklace he made.
The necklace.
Yeah, and it's one of those where I go back and forth because I think that could have so much significance. Could that be the shooter? But then I'm like, there was a crowd of hundreds of people.
Sure.
There's no way that you could logically or reasonably think that this necklace has anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. But Tagomi-san finds the necklace, and he seems to think it's significant in some way. Now, whether or not it's maybe because we don't know what the necklace actually represents. My only thinking was because that exact same thing. You wouldn't see a necklace and be like, oh, this must be the person who took the shot. You would just be like, oh, there's a necklace on the ground. Logically, there was a bunch of people here a minute ago
sprinting away.
Exactly. Someone dropped a necklace. But I'm wondering if there's a symbol or there's something about the shape or it has some meaning. My first thought was it was sort of like the Star of David pendants that maybe it had some sort of significance like that we don't know of yet.
Or I just thought of this. This is not something I thought of earlier, but you saying that he makes replica guns. Like he works in a shop with metal. And
I
know that they talked about, a couple times he gets asked about his jewelry.
Yeah, and if he's
in this episode.
Right.
Yeah, if he's still doing it. And so I wonder if there's a way to track the metal from the necklace back to that
to the factory.
That's
factory,
quite possible.
and then to him as the jewelry maker.
That's possible.
And then with the bullets that he bought, like in some way, this whole thing where it's like he works in a replica gun shop, he makes these necklaces from the same metal, and he bought these bullets,
Yes.
So maybe without actually knowing how significant it is,
Right.
When the trade minister finds it. It ends up being a huge problem for Frank.
Sure. I think that
it's still that leap in logic to find this necklace and be like, this is my guy. Like,
I mean, and technically we don't know that that's what he's thinking.
Sure.
But it just, the way it cinematically like fell, and then the way like he picks it up, and then of course
there's something else going on.
We see it at the end of the episode,
Right.
And Juliana sees it, and I think it's more significant for her than anybody at this point because. She's probably, I don't know, I would be thinking, like, how the heck did he get this necklace that my boyfriend gave me and I left on his dresser? You know what I mean?
Well, she probably assumes
what
that
the heck is Frank doing with it in his pocket?
Frank.
Well, but that's what I mean.
Yeah, so there's something probably happened to Frank. That's probably her next thought is, oh no, where's Frank? What happened to Frank? Was he hurt?
Right, but even so, like, to why is it significant at this point? Like, why? I would be so weirded out if I was Juliana. Like, why is this...
Yeah.
Like, why?
How did he get this necklace?
Why does he have it? Like, why is he carrying it in his hands through the hallway?
Right.
First of all, and she's just been through a stressful situation in general. Yeah, I know, right? That scene, makes your skin crawl.
And we didn't even see much.
Yeah,
of
we
anything.
didn't. We don't really know what happened.
Right. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure.
I think as an overarching theme, Frank is a terrible, terrible assassinator. Like the dude, when it comes to crimes, like we got Joe on one hand who's putting together a murder like cover up in an hour, and then you got Frank who's out there and he's just doing every mistake in the book. He's getting the stuff from where he works. He's bringing items that are definitely distinguishable to who he is.
And he's signing off for the bullets.
He's bleeding.
He didn't even do it.
Actually, he's like, man, this looks
he
really
let a
like
little kid see him with a gun.
Any Law and Order episode, he's the first guy they talk to because he looks so suspicious. They're like, this is the guy loading boxes who just won't stop doing it to talk to us.
Yeah.
That's Frank. Oh, sorry, I gotta make these replica guns. Like, I didn't shoot anybody. I got so many guns to make. Like, it's absurd.
What are you talking about? So I will say, more than anything else in this entire episode, the thing that shocked me was Juliana goes home and so does Joe.
Yeah,
that was shocking.
What?
It felt like
what?
It felt like the first 4 episodes we were sort of building to this thing, and
it wasn't them going to their separate places. It wasn't that.
It was them meeting the man in the high castle, and whether or not that just escalated too quickly or what the deal is, but it's like we find out, okay, that's not going to happen.
I mean, I didn't actually think they were going to meet the man in the high castle. I don't think anybody did. It's too soon. Or there would be some twist, but there wasn't. It was predictable in that sense, and not in a bad way either. But I did not see it coming. And knowing that, and in our last one, having watched this episode already, it was hard not to be like, I have the biggest prediction ever because I've already seen it. But no, I would have never predicted that.
I think that the story in itself, you said, if everything is fresh, it starts over, like they both go back home.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the new normal. The name of the episode is The New Normal. And even Frank, as he's leaving, he goes, we can never go back. I'm talking about surviving, getting through today, Juliana. Like, he's changed where he's no longer keeping his head down and just moving forward. Everything for them has changed. Like, I relate. Everybody's experience in the story so far is like a bender in Vegas where you go out, you have a great time or a really bad time, and the next morning you're sitting there going, what the heck just happened?
It sounds like you're speaking from personal experience.
You're talking about all the situations.
The difference is this will never go back to normal. I mean, I thought it was so interesting. She just walked back in the house and he's like playing with the radio, and and he just so like nonchalantly mentions that the prince was shot.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and she even asked him point blank at one point. She's like, can we, so does that mean we're just going to go back to the way things were? And he's like, Juliana, we can't go back. And he's right. There's nothing.
This literally is the new normal.
Exactly.
I mean,
and we see the parallel with Joe's situation when he goes back to New York City. I mean, one of the first things that we see happen is he gets kidnapped on the street, quote unquote, on the streets. He gets bagged and put into a van. and taken to meet with Obergruppe and Führer, but before that to be vetted on tape as they like read his report skeptically, and that relationship is forever altered for whatever reason. Namely that Joe didn't take a shot at the man in the high castle, which he wasn't going to get to anyways. And that seemed pretty obvious. Like, if I was Joe, I wouldn't think that I would actually even be able to get there, because why would they don't need to bring me there, they just need this film. But even so, he'd let the film slip into enemy hands, which was, I think, the ultimate sort of cardinal sin in the mission, especially since we find out that he doesn't even have, like, Lem has disappeared, so it's not like it wasn't even for anything. It's like they don't even have this resistance leader. They didn't ID this
what
guy.
do you think happened to Lem?
I think Lem packed up and left. I mean, I think that he sort of expended whatever he could do in Cannon City, and I think it was very
you don't
much
think he
like,
was taken or anything?
No, I think he's on his
he
next
left
mission.
on his own. Okay.
I think that he left to get out of there. I think that he knew that, okay, these two people are going to leave now, and the marshals here wrecking stuff. Like, it's time to move on. And I think he's right in doing this. I mean, if I were him, I would get out at that point. He has a wife and kids. Like, as soon as stuff got weird, I'd be gone. Like, as soon
he completed his mission.
And he got 2 films. Like, that's a big day for him.
Yeah, he doubled down. So he's like, hey, man, in the high castle, the castle's not looking so big. I'm kind of getting up here.
Exactly.
Well, true. So I want to go back to Juliana, because you said wife and kids. So, one of the first things Frank says to her also is, maybe you should go see your mom. Your mom's been worried about you.
Yeah.
And so she goes, and she doesn't admit she ever left town. Her mom's like, oh, I thought maybe you got a job. And it just goes back to, we talked about the media, but communication and all of that. I mean, it wasn't, you didn't talk to your mom every day or text her off and on, or, there wasn't that. It sounds like they didn't even just like stop by each other's house. It's not like her mom, if she was worried or wondered what's going on, why didn't she come over or call? Like, that's just not the culture.
There's an assassination attempt, and she doesn't even know, and it's been like over a day, and she's still like, oh, what, in my city? Like, somebody almost got shot? Like, you're like, how do you not know?
But I thought it was crazy that she didn't in any way let her parents know that Trudy's dead.
She didn't do that. Well, it also...
And that's how she found out about Frank's family being killed.
Well,
like,
Frank's
both
not the
of those
talker,
things.
but yeah, it was a big scene. I like... First of all, I love, because what you were saying before about them trying to hide it, like them trying to take the cameras away, that being the first thing.
Oh, yeah.
It lends credence to that as a theory, just because they don't know. Like, it's not like there's been a press release. Like, by the way, just so everyone knows, the prince was shot. Everything's cool, though. Like, it seems like they are trying to keep it under wraps. A lot of people are trying to keep stuff under wraps. She's lying about Trudy. Frank didn't tell her about his sister. There's just a lot of... It's just in this world in general, and it's one of the things that's so good about this world is there's a lot of subversion, and there's a lot of like hiding stuff. There's just a lot.
Do you think Frank didn't tell her because he's mad, or because he just didn't want her to feel bad and like have that be on her shoulders?
I think he's too self-involved still at the moment. I don't think that her coming back has brought him out of him seeing red still. So it's not a priority. He's still focusing on what he needs to do.
I think that he doesn't have anything to gain from her, in one way or the other, from putting that on her. So maybe it is sort of like a combination of it being selfish to where, like, it doesn't matter. Like, he doesn't need to tell her. He doesn't feel the need to let her in on that. But also, what good would it do if she knew? And so maybe it's partly like,
I mean, it's not that it would do her any good, but at the same time, like, you live with someone and they're not going to tell you that their family died.
But this is the new normal. This is
lies
before they would have
hiding.
I don't feel the love between them anyways. Like, I still like.
You think it's ruined?
I feel it's tarnished in a way. I just don't see that appeal. He abandoned her for a situation and put her harm's way, and she did the same thing back. It's they're both being very selfish in their overall goal. You're supposed to be a team.
Well, and I mean, she left, and he 100% didn't know really where she was going or why she was going. Like, he didn't understand any of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever thought she was coming back. And that was actually one thing I was really surprised about, because Ed, towards the end of the last, I think it was the end of the last episode, says something like, no, she loves you. Like, Juliana will come back, when when she's done.
Yeah, I didn't know that was on the table.
And I was like, no, she's not. And then, like, she's on a bus at the beginning of the next episode. What, 10 minutes in? I'm like, no, Ed, no, you can't be right. Like, you're a great guy, but you can't be the one that's right now.
Exactly. Well,
like, what about Joe? I like Joe. I mean, that was my prediction. I mean, I kind of want Juliana and Joe to kind of like have a thing,
JJ,
which I hate doing. Like, I hate like cliche romance, you know. I hate that.
But what you're sensing, I think, is completely realistic and pertinent in that I want them to save each other. You know, they sort of have this opportunity. They're from these sort of separate worlds that used to be the same world, and they can save each other in a way. Like,
are you talking about
Juliana
and Joe?
Like,
okay.
she can, if he puts his stock sort of in her as a person, it pulls him away from his support for the Nazi regime, you know what I mean? And for her, it's like it gives her a deeper sense of purpose, and she's lost so much. I mean, we know that she didn't have a dad, she didn't have and this thing with her situation with Frank is tenuous at best. You know, I feel like Frank and Juliana, I feel like that triangle is still going to happen, and that like her and Frank storyline is going to progress, and somehow from, you know, long distance or whatever, I think they're going to obviously meet up again at some point. Yeah. But Juliana and Joe, that still exists because there's a lot of chemistry there. But I'm more. This sounds so lame. I'm more Team Joe than I am Team Frank.
I know, sure. And I hate being that way.
Yeah, you think so?
But it is one of those things where. With Joe, and I mean, they've now been through something that they went through together. You know, she was on, whereas Frank, you know, this, like you called it, he's still looking in the red, or however you worded that. He's doing this all on his own. Yeah. And he's not letting her in. I mean, and not that she let him in, but I think that's sort of where, like, they're now on their own paths. Like, they're motivated by totally separate things, and they're not connecting or working together in any way. I mean, now they just sort of happen to live together, which is really sad,
which is odd,
but it also kind of speaks to like their love, right? You know, because it's like if that could do that quickly, because I don't think she was gone for months and months. I think she was gone for days, like maybe a week at best.
Yeah, it seems like a few days. I'm gonna like looking, because I think they bring reference to it at one point. Maybe I just had dreamed this, but it seems like it was in the span of like a few days that all of this sort of happened.
I mean, but I'm like adding like a day on either end for like the bus ride, you know, something in like a week tops, so like 6 or 7 days max.
I would say, a week tops.
I mean,
it may be as low as like 4.
Yeah,
you know.
But there's a new romance in her life as well that we find out in the very end. That gentleman, he's a new romance.
Oh my gosh, that is not romance. There's nothing romantic about that.
She's got a Nazi on one end, an assassin on the the other end, and then a guy who's pushing on her on the other. Like, none of her options are good options. Yeah, she's got really bad options.
What do you do in that scenario? We actually, you know, it's unresolved at the end of the episode. We don't really know how she handles that situation in the room. Well, but she has this opportunity. She's faced with this chance. Like, if I get this job, I have an opportunity to undermine.
Let's go back though, because we have to get to the point where she's even interested in getting a job. Sure. I think, and you know, so it's the new normal, and so she's home now. So she goes to her parents. She sees them. She goes back to her dojo studio or class, you know, whatever that's called, and they basically won't let her in. You know, he's
she finds out
this
she's
is a
wanted.
place of harmony and peace, and then she finds out she's wanted, and like a very, I don't know, inexperienced person that's wanted, she like goes to check in. You know, she goes like straight to the people looking for her,
I think,
and gets interrogated.
If she's trying to live in San Francisco again in any capacity, it's sort of like she has to do that.
Yeah, why did she go back?
I don't know. Also, Kansas City wasn't really the most hospitable place in the world.
I mean, true. I mean, she did have to leave. I mean, which I get. Like, she had to leave there.
She had to fake her death. And
I guess I just thought her and Joe would be on to the next adventure.
Which I still think that there's that possibility, because now we have Joe at a point where he's being, you know, contrary to John Smith.
We have this awesome interrogation montage where both of them are sort of being grilled by their,
which is what I really wanted to get to.
Yeah, administrative people.
Because he gets captured, and she and again, I don't know, maybe that speaks to both of who they are. She just like turns herself in.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, "Oh, I'm wanted. Okay, well, yeah, I didn't check in. I'll go check in." And Joe gets like dragged in. You know.
To keep images up to ensure that if anyone is watching, his cover remains intact.
Yeah.
And I think for her, I think she goes up there to turn herself in, because look what they have done to Frank. At this point, she knows what's happened. She knows what's at stake. She's like, they'll kill my family too. Like, she didn't even know she was wanted. So it's a situation where it's better to get ahead of it.
How could she not know?
You should have been able to guess that you were wanted.
Right, in some capacity. I mean, or at least after Frank tells you. Because again, that's one of those things where it's like, well, if you show up at home and Frank doesn't tell you that anything's happened to us, I mean, you really don't have any reason to think something went wrong.
But how wanted is she? I mean, she literally got investigated on the bus. She walked around town. She went to the dojo. People saw her. Like, she couldn't be that wanted.
And then like turned herself in, got interrogated, and basically left the end of the interrogation. The guy's like, things will never go back to normal for you.
Right.
Like she's clearly on a list. She's been flagged. She's going to be watched.
Yeah.
Because of leaving and the circumstances of how she left.
Investigator, what's it? Keto, I think is his name. It's played by played by Joel, and I think he does a really good job with that character. His is sort of, to me, now set up as, to me, he's the counterpart to Obergruppenführer, in the Pacific states, but he's sort of like the arch bad guy in my eyes, or the arch systemic villain, because we also see him sort of starkly opposed to Gomi and Rudolph and the things that they're, so it's almost like he's counteracting two different storylines, so because he bears down on Frank and on Juliana, but also bears down on Rudolph and to Gomi, and we see, whereas Obergruppenführer just relates to Joe and Joe's storyline with Juliana. It's really interesting that he sort of has, because originally when we first started this, it was like Obergruppenführer was like the icon for the system, right? Yeah. But to me, it's Investigator Keto now. Like that's like the guy.
Interesting.
Well, I think he is the most brash of those that we've seen in the Japanese hierarchy, sure, and John Smith has been that of the German Reich.
Yeah,
for sure.
But his situation, I feel like he's the epitome of country over self, whereas he believes country's purpose is.
We're talking about the John Smith, Obergruppenführer Smith.
No, touch Keto. That. Okay. Yeah, Keto. I think that his thing is country over self, and he believes that by country that is rule with an iron fist, make sure that everyone stands in line, and if he messes up, he will kill himself as well. Like he'll do the act of ritual. It's seppuku.
Seppuku. Which, okay, this is I put a star by this on my little notebook here. I was so inspired and happy to see that they included like a traditional seppuku
cultural
in this, because it's that was something that was relevant in World War II. I mean, there's reports of in the battle
and people I don't think that's something I didn't know that. That was something that after I heard, I scribbled that down, and I was kind of went back and looked. I mean, also knowing that, of course, if it's included in the capacity of a very traditional cultural ceremony, if you will, right. That's a real thing. Like, they're not just gonna make that up and throw that into a show that's
it's very, I mean, this goes back to, this is like an ancient samurai thing. Like this goes back to I think what the samurai the order came to be known as samurai sometime in the 12th century, something like that. This goes back to around that time, and you see it all through feudal Japan. And in World War II, if a general failed, or even there's reports of entire squadrons or platoons of Japanese soldiers who feel like they have failed their mission or are going to be captured, would opt to kill themselves instead. And
which is crazy.
It's the same thing as kamikaze pilots. It's like giving your life for your state, which is something that you see manifested in a much more what's the word? Not brutal, but a much more expensive, at least expensive in terms of loss of life, in a much more expensive way in the Japanese states than you do in the German states. And it goes even harkens back to real history. In the war, you didn't see a lot of German soldiers who were going to kill themselves.
No.
Yeah, for
why
the
would they? It's not they have nothing to gain from that.
Well, no, but that's the thing, is that you did see kamikaze pilots. You know what I mean? Like, that was a real thing, where Japanese pilots would fly their planes into ships. Like, they would kill themselves for their mission, for their cause.
Right, but I feel like there's definitely something different, because we have suicide bombers today. I mean, there's still people that are doing those kinds of things to bring harm. There's a difference, I guess, in having your mission being you are going to lose your own life to accomplish the mission, and taking your own life because you failed at your mission.
Sure. I think that's to maintain your honor, though. They're looking at a situation where they're given a mission. This is your mission. Do this. And why Tagomi and Kido are opposite, they oppose one another. And when they have the meeting in the office, and he speaks to him, why are my guests being detained?
Yeah,
it's a situation of, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but his life is on the line. His life is on the line, and he's like, I need to find who did this. Nobody is leaving, because by you saying you're going to release somebody, that's pretty much saying my life is invaluable to you. Right. And if he's willing to risk his life for the mission to find out who shot the prince, then he would expect other people in the same position as him to do the same thing.
Right.
And so I can see the aggression from him. He's like, look, my life's on the line. whoever was leading ahead of him who performed that, he killed himself because he knew he had to maintain his honor and he stood by what he believed and what others believed that he believed, and that's why he's in that position. They're not going to just give it to a guy, give him the control of the investigation if they think he's gonna be like, well, I'm sorry guys, didn't find it,
right. Well, and that's the thing, if you look at in that way, I think like the ceremony of seppuku sort of serves the same purpose as far as furthering a cause. If you know that failure means death for you and your society and your cultural sphere, then you're not gonna fail. You know what I mean? You're gonna die before you fail, or you're gonna fail. You're gonna die failing, I guess, or you're gonna try as hard as you can. Yeah, it's because you're gonna die either way. You know what I mean? And that's something that I don't know we can speak to, at least with the same gravity when we go to the Grand Reich, because in a more westernized European or American cultural sphere, that's not as much of a thing. Failure is failure, but in the Japanese states, as was the case in the Japanese Empire during the actual war, failure usually meant death. Either you failed and you died, or if you were a general and if you lost, a lot of times the emperor would ask you, or you would just take it upon yourself, or some superior would ask you to off yourself in an honorable way, and it was a way to save honor, but it still meant death.
Yeah. Well, we see two kinds of failure. Joe failed, as did Don,
and that was
official.
actually exactly where I was going. I mean, we don't see Joe off himself because he had to turn in the film.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I mean...
And he clearly isn't a valuable asset to them to an extreme extent. He is somebody that, while interrogating the resistance member, they almost shot their own guy in the head, one of their own officers in the head in last episode, because they're like, oh, well, all right, the only way we're going to get an honest answer out of him is if we put a gun to his head. And so it just shows they don't value life. Right. It means nothing to them if they kill one of their soldiers. That's definitely,
I think, more of the time than of either culture, because I feel like all cultures didn't value life the way all cultures do now. We all societies didn't value life the way but we're living long. There's a whole lot of reasoning behind why now life, I think humanity is held to a higher level and kind of respected more by all.
Right. Well, World War II is a big sort of pivot point in world history, because specifically around sort of the value of life in a lot of ways. The Great Wars were wars of human resource in a lot of ways. I think what I was trying to say in regards to the seppuku is that is something that was a cultural thing, and that's not a cultural thing today in the same way at all. You know what I mean? But it was during World War II still. It
right. No, I get what you're saying.
And I thought it was really cool that they maintained that through...
And included it.
And included it in the series, because it's something that probably would have been, at least, if not the same, but at least would have been somehow more relevant than it is today had the war turned out the way that it does in the series. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought it was just a very cool inclusion. And... They did the ceremony. They did the ceremony justice. That's what the ceremony is. You stab and then you slice and then someone hacks your head off. It's brutal.
Yeah.
But it's
I did one of these.
Culturally relevant and specific.
I don't watch blood. But so moving past that, we talked about the conversation where the trade minister is trying to get his foreigner guys their passports back so they can carry on with their business. Because we are talking about important people, you know, that are trying to get back and carry on with their business. And I did find it interesting that there was one man in particular, that we see leave, that he actually goes out of his way to get him a diplomatic airfare ticket,
right, Rudolph.
so that he doesn't have to have an identification to fly.
Yeah, he's really sticking his neck out. Tagomi is for Rudolph in this situation.
I don't know if you guys caught it, but at the beginning, because Rudolph was on the stage,
right?
Yeah.
And so when they're filing out and they're doing one of these and they're scanning everybody, he rips that paper up.
Yeah, and he ripped up the envelope that was holding the microfilm,
okay.
And then he swallowed the
microfilm.
Yeah.
Because then we see him later in the episode, he retrieves the microfilm.
Yes.
Because I was under the impression, initially I was like, oh, okay, the microfilm's gone. He ate it. Yeah. But then we find out in discussion with Tagomi that, oh, no, it's okay. We just have to wait a little while.
Yeah, it's like if the dog eats your keys.
Yeah, exactly.
You just got to wait for it. Well, here we go.
So, but he gets it back.
Right?
And then that scene I thought was just a really intense and good scene where we see Tagomi hey, okay, head down, walk this way. Be downstairs in 2 minutes. Don't walk too fast.
Elevator 3.
Yeah, exactly. Here's your ticket. You're gonna get on a plane, and then Rudolph sees his opening. He sees his contact across the room. He has the film, the microfilm in his hand, and he's like, "I'm going in for this." But someone knows, like there's someone, I don't know how he said that he would recognize him, but one of the escort,
he just said that he recognized
he
me.
just said he knows me. Yeah,
right. So
he didn't say how.
So we have to see how that plays out, because he does it. We see him actually drop the microfilm into his contact's jacket, but he gets recognized in the process, and we see him walk out, but it's very ominous.
Yeah. And I love that, because it's one of those where he says, "Oh no, only if something about Sweden, Stockholm,
right,
or
Stockholm,
so only if you know Sweden or Stockholm, or however he words, basically trying to imply that he's from Sweden and in Stockholm." But
it seems like a very weird interaction. Like,
well, and so it's one of those where it leaves us. It's ominous, because it's like, okay, so is he just gonna shake it off? Or is the guy gonna like do some digging and figure out? Oh no, that's not really some dude from Sweden.
They've shown that character before, and he was the one who walked up and actually moved the science minister over and changed his seats. He's like, "You're well too, respected to be sitting way back here. Let's move you up to the front." And so it goes to show he's going to be a recurring character. He has some weight and some gravity when it comes to the science minister.
Yes.
Well, and I'm wondering if he somehow knows about this plot that Rudolph and Tagomi have, because if he's the one who specifically moved the science minister before, right? Because I have a theory that what's on the microfilm, I mean, it's obviously like something to do, it's chemical in some way, shape, or form, because we saw like a molecular structure, whether it's a breakdown of like how to make a nuclear bomb, or something about jet fuel, because we've referenced like the Nazis have the developed
far more
technology
ahead,
for jets,
But that's who they're worried is going to
it.
drop the bomb, though. Even the Japanese and the free people, they've all mentioned that the Nazis are the one who are going to drop the bomb.
Right.
And they keep referencing, and even in reality, the Nazis were close to developing the bomb.
In this context, they had dropped the bomb, because in the context of the show, they dropped the bomb on DC before the U.S. At least that's our impression at this point, is that DC was nuked, and the U.S., they basically beat the U.S. to developing the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like, at least as far as I can gather, the reason why the U.S. lost the war. So I mean, that's the most obvious thing, is that it's somehow plans for an atomic bomb. But now the science minister has it. But the question is, does this other guy who was kind of his escort know that he has it now? Like, does he somehow know, or at least suspect? I think that he suspects. I don't know if he knows point blank, but I think that he knows there's something fishy going on, because he moved this guy maybe away from this guy. This guy kind of followed him, and now this guy like bumped into him in the hallway.
Well, and
this guy's around him a lot.
I don't know his name, but the guy that recognized.
I don't know if
does he
learned his name.
Pick it up? You know what I mean? Like, does he notice?
I don't think he picked up on the drop.
You know what I mean?
I don't think he picked up on the drop, but I think he knows that something's off about this guy who was just like, "Not if you don't know Stockholm," and then like awkwardly turning around and leaving, just to where like
is he gonna come back?
Yeah, there wasn't a button on that scene for me. Like, that will come back up.
But of course,
absolutely.
that officer is incredibly, he's egotistical. The dude stops, but he caught a mirror. And he stopped by, and the only reason the mission was even able to be had is
it's like checking himself
everybody,
out.
Hold up. So that's real nice, right? Like, that's absurd. If could you imagine if you were in the Nazi Reich and a mission unfolded underneath your nose because you were checking yourself out? You're like, oh, this looks really good.
You would have to commit selfie.
I had to take a selfie.
Come on, you know how good Hugo Boss looks? Like, I look amazing in this uniform. It just seems absurd, but I'm really curious as to whether or not the science minister is involved in the plan, because I think there's a lot of parts where I feel like they pointed him as the point of contact. That's the guy, so there is somebody relatable, but why is he not helping in any way? If he simply just popped his hand back like this, the whole thing would have been a lot easier instead of the guy trying to like slip it in his pocket.
I don't think he knows. I think the idea is that
you don't know who your contact is.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think that he even knows anything about it. I think the idea is that he's gonna like randomly stick his hand in his pocket and be like, "Hey, what's this microfilm?" And then figure out like, this is the place for the atomic bomb, and boom, all of a sudden the Japanese Empire has nuclear capabilities. You know what I mean? I think that's the idea.
And then
interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about this, because why else would you target a science minister, and why is he not helping at all? Why does he not seem to have any knowledge of it? Because he doesn't acknowledge Rudolph. He doesn't recognize Rudolph.
Right.
Rudolph
I guess
just
that's
goes,
true.
"Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
But now he has the plans for something important, presumably a nuke, in his jacket pocket, and he's a science minister, so he has the means to recognize Bless you.
Yeah, bless
Thank you. Sorry, guys.
A, recognize what it is, and B, do something
Develop
with it.
it, yeah.
You know, he can use it in some way, shape, or form.
And his first thought's going to be, where'd this come from? And I just hope nobody tells him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where'd this come from?
seriously.
You don't want to know.
Well, you know there's going to be a way
Yeah.
it gets traced somehow,
Yeah.
you know, potentially.
Well, maybe, but in either case, like once he has that, then the Japanese Empire has nukes, and that may be enough of a deterrent to prevent this war from happening, which lends some weight to Tagomi. What Tagomi's plan overall was, which is that deterrence, like deterrence from war, like maintain the peace. It's sort of like now there's going to be like a Cold War between the Pacific States and the Great Reich, you know, because neither side, once the Japanese can develop the nuclear weapons, then it would be
what could
destruction
bring
for
us to a
everyone.
Cold War.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the Cold War scenario with different countries involved.
Yeah. So now let's go, because Juliana meets this woman.
Right. She meets like the resistance woman. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the same woman that approached Frank before, that he was kind of like, hey, screw you.
Right.
But she approaches Juliana with a little bit of information.
But she was not very forthcoming.
I don't understand.
In the beginning, yeah.
I mean, she was kind of a, you
Yeah.
know what, I thought.
A little bugaboo.
A little, that's exactly what I was thinking. Bugaboo.
I don't understand how she knows where to be, like where these people are and how to approach them, and knows so much about what's going on with them.
I think it's, I mean, she's had a couple days to like figure some stuff out. You know, like she
Sure,
knows
but-
Trudy's dead. It's probably not hard to follow a drunk Frank home from the bar
Yeah.
to then see that Juliana came home. To then, you know what I mean? To then follow her. Like, I don't think this lady has. I don't think she has a lot else to do.
Sure.
I guess is what I'm
maybe.
getting at.
I mean,
And we also still don't really know how big the resistance is. Like maybe,
really don't, yeah.
maybe Lem was like, expect her. You know what I mean? Look for her.
yeah.
It's this new chick now. It's not Trudy anymore.
Yeah.
that could be. Yeah.
Because we know Randall's dead. Not that we.
And that's how Juliana found her, was going to Randall's old address.
Right. And, you know, she doesn't want to give a lot of information. But the thing that I thought was interesting was what Juliana, she said, this has to be about something more.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, again, it's like all she wants is answers. Like she's not on anyone's side. She's
Yeah.
just on the side of like knowledge and truth. That's all she wants at this point.
But
Juliana.
yeah.
Yeah.
But at
I
what
still
point-
feel like that's all she cares
It's
about.
not knowledge and truth so much as it's curiosity to me, but it's like she's seen the film. I honestly think that was the inciting action for her, is that she's seen the film and now she knows that there's something else.
Bigger.
Yeah, either there's something else going on, or like, because we saw the snippet of that film. That's the only
Yeah.
film that we've seen any part of. And it was the Allies winning the war. So either that happened somehow, or in some alternate reality that happened, or at the very least someone had the means and capabilities to make this really intense propaganda. Like I know that there's something else going on there. I actually, just in us talking through this episode, I'll save it for predictions, but I have a prediction about who like the man in the high castle is.
Okay, well let's just talk about the final scene,
Okay.
and then go into predictions.
Okay.
So the final scene, well, I guess that was kind of leading into it. So she meets this woman, and the woman kind of is basically like, I would never ask you to do that. I would never ask anybody, but you know, we do. You know, if somebody could get a job in the building,
Right.
you know, just kind of, it's like she's like throwing breadcrumbs, right?
Right,
you
yeah.
know, and just wants to see if she'll bite, and she does.
And she does. Well, she does to an extent. We don't know to what extent.
Well, no, I mean, she bites in the sense that she goes and applies for the job.
She
Yeah.
does,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, she definitely took the bait.
And she meets
And
Mr. Eto,
Yeah, Eto. Mr. Eto.
who was not my favorite character in this episode. I imagine he
Little
doesn't have a
right,
lot of
which
fans out
okay,
there.
and again, so he's got the necklace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no,
that was
Tagomi
that
has
was
the necklace.
Tagomi.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
She
yes,
bumped
when she
into.
leaves out. Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
When
But
she runs out of the room.
well, she runs out of the room.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened in the room, other than
Right.
that he inappropriately sort of, what's the word, propositioned her.
Not sort of.
Yeah, he.
I mean, he unzipped his pants.
Yeah, that's pretty much as far as you can go.
Yeah, that's very good.
You know, well, and I thought it was interesting because the girl that sat next to this, like, "Are you here for the job?" She didn't have a coat or anything on.
Yeah.
So I'm like, was she already in there?
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? You know what I
No,
mean?
that's
or,
true,
Or I
yeah.
just, not that it really matters because it's not really obviously about her. She's probably just an
Right.
extra.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting, you know. I can't imagine walking into an interview and having a man or a woman, you know, kind of say, well, I've got other things, you know, take your coat off.
Take off your coat. Yeah.
Turn around.
Uncomfortable.
Like sizing up. I'd be like, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going and I'm not interested. And even if I'm wrong, the fact that you could say something that would make me think that's where this is going is also not okay.
Again, but the stakes are totally different for all of a sudden Juliana, her sister's dead, her boyfriend's family.
Okay, I don't care how many people I love die. I'm not doing that for a job.
Sure, and I don't think I get the feeling that she didn't do it, but it is sort of still left up to ambiguity. Like, we still don't know what happened.
Absolutely. Or she tried to and didn't, or if he forced himself because she wouldn't. I mean, there's a lot of ways that could have gone.
Yeah.
Or if she just ran out, you know. But it is interesting. I can only speak from, you know, what I would do or what I think I would do, you know. Because that's one of those situations where it's like you don't know how you're going to handle it until you're in it.
Sure.
In the sense that, I mean, she was still just standing there as the pants were being unzipped. Like, she let him, you know, undress her as much as he could sitting down and then walk around and stand there, you know, after saying, you know, and some personal matters, you know, if and when I call for them, or, you know, however he worded that. And it's like, okay, at some point he's like making you take your overclothes off and, you know, and coming around to stand, you know, a foot away from you. And then he unzips his pants. I mean, by the time he's unzipping his pants, I feel like she had to already know what he was implying.
I think she knew well before that. She
That's
doesn't seem
what
like
I'm
a
saying.
damn
Because
individual.
for him, it's also one of those where he's not going to outright say anything, you know, because then if she goes out and tries to tell somebody, like...
But I think that he can. It's a situation. This is 1950s. Yeah, this is not a time where women had power. Like
and also, he's a Japanese man in power in a Japanese governed society, and she's wanted. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that I don't think he's at any risk here. I don't think that he's at any risk of getting caught. There's not an HR department that's going to.
Well, no,
he is personnel. He is the HR department. He's the literal HR department.
I don't mean in the sense of like getting in trouble. I mean, like somebody like firing him or, you know, coming after him. But I can't imagine that. I mean, there's got to be some disgrace to that. I don't
think that in his situation,
don't think so?
He's in another country ruling over and subjugating people. They are killing Jewish folk on an afternoon on a Tuesday. Like this, and women don't have rights back then. There was not a situation where civil rights existed for women.
It's like for us, obviously, and when you look at it, it's a disgraceful situation, but I don't think that his honor in the context is disgraced in this world. Does that make sense? In the world of this show, I think that he can absolutely get away with this. I
don't like that.
It should be.
No, I don't like that at all.
I know, and I don't either. And I think that's the point. And I think they do that well.
They did.
Yeah.
Because I'm angry.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very angry.
It made you feel something. To me, the point.
Oh, absolutely.
Like any art, it's like if you feel something, they did it well. Even if what you feel is like your skin crawling. Like that's how I feel.
Really quick predictions.
Yes. Okay. I have a big one, so I'll go. Okay. I'll go last. Oh, let's do this.
And now your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Go first.
Go first?
Yeah, go first.
Okay. So, I remembered for some reason, this came to me like as I was actually looking at the map, just like over there, like over your shoulder. If you look at where like the states are, like the Pacific states, the part that's not touched is the Rockies, right? And it's very specifically the Rockies. Yeah. Like the Grand Right goes as far as like I think like North Dakota or something. If I remember right, there is a bunker. There is a giant bunker that was built during the Cold War to house U.S. political figures, like deep inside of a mountain. And it's like a huge like elevator shaft straight down sort of thing. And I forget what it's called.
Cheyenne Mountain?
Maybe that's what it is. But it's that sounds really familiar.
Okay, so
but it's like a nuclear shelter, right?
Okay.
And I'm wondering like if the man in the high castle is
in there?
the president of the US that somehow is hiding
like
out
saved
in quote unquote the castle
from DC's downfall.
And is sort of leading the resistance, which is this like loose affiliation of people who were, you know, the American
I like that prediction.
Government or government agencies or whatever it might be from the castle, which would be maybe this bunker. I also, you know, haven't read the book, and I'm glad I haven't read the book in the context of this after
I keep
show,
debating. I keep wanting to watch.
It would be so
I'm
hard
gonna
for me
read
to
it.
sit here and talk
I think after we wrap all 10.
Do you have any predictions?
Yeah, I think my prediction, bouncing off of yours, of who the man in the high castle is, when John Smith is putting the envelope in the folder, in his briefcase, as he's inviting him to VA Day, which sounds like a really fun party. So I think Joe's going to have a great time at the barbecue at 11.
I hope that's sarcasm.
Of course that's sarcasm.
I love that. I love that it was like casual, like, oh, we're having family over. Like, come over.
Yeah, I know you haven't spent a lot of time around your family.
Yeah, right? I was going to kill you the other day, but...
Well, but like when have you ever invited someone over and been like, and the party starts at 11 o'clock? Do not be late.
It's imperative.
So, yes, it's like a mission.
So my prediction is they see the grasshopper folder, and we've heard previously that the Nazis, they're like, oh, we know who the man in the high castle is, and he's dead. They're very they're very affirmative about that fact. So what I like to think is that the man in the castle is an individual that was high up in the Nazi party, and he disbanded from them at a high rank. So that intricate of Nazi officials know who he is, but then they don't. But so they know who he is. They're trying to catch him, and now he has those products, and he's got the footage, and he took stuff from the Japanese that he knows where to hurt them. And that's what he has, and so he removed that, all those materials.
Do you think it could be like? Do you think it could be Hitler? Since we were
talking
about Hitler being dead.
I know he's. Yeah, they said he was sick. He had Parkinson's and all that. Yeah. I don't think that it was. I don't think it would be Hitler, but I think it could be somebody that was within Hitler's office. He did not have a change of heart.
That's for sure.
that guy seems pretty stuck in his ways.
For sure. Well, not to predict it. So the man in the high castle is either the president of the United States or Adolf Hitler.
No, I definitely don't think it's Hitler.
I don't think it's Hitler. But yeah, it could be one of the other higher ups, or just someone who has a lot of intel inside.
See, I'm gonna predict that the man in the high castle is among us, if you will. Like he's not holed up somewhere. He's not necessarily already been like shown on screen, but just he's an everyday person, or not just one person. Like he's like the symbol, like he's not like
sort of like Big Brother,
like Oz, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's all the time we have for tonight. So we will be back. We will be back with episode 6 next time. So join us then. I am your host, Courtney Henderson. I can be found online at Cohen, Couhen. Gentlemen?
I'm Keith W. Black. You can find me all over the net, Keith W. Black. Go ahead and write us a comment. We'll be able to continue the conversation on YouTube, iTunes, all those different sites.
Yes, please do. My name is Taylor Bolt. You can find me on Twitter at Taybolt. That's TYBOLDT. Or on Instagram at Tbolt. Also BOLDT. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks very much.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.